So let's understand Iran's position. As I said, because the Arabs of the Levant, the Palestinians, have been waging a total war against the establishment of a Jewish state. And it's important because they're not just at war with any kind of Jews. They're at war with the Jews who had the gall to expect sovereignty, dignity, liberty, equality in their ancient homeland. So because the Arabs, the Palestinians, have been waging a total war against the Jews who want sovereignty, who want to defend themselves by themselves, they were always able to have a cooperation, a collaboration with every Jew-hating power in the world. So in the 30s and 40s, the Palestinians have a very fruitful collaboration with the Nazis. Today, people are trying to marginalize it, say that the Mufti and Hitler, it wasn't a big deal. The Arabs of the area were part of the Axis powers. They sought a Nazi victory. The Mufti was part of the Nazi operations. He only escaped trials in Nuremberg through a side deal. The insertion of Nazi propaganda in the Arabic language continues to this day. You can see it in the Hamas charter. And then the Nazis were defeated and headed to the dustbin of history. And they were replaced by the Pan-Arabists and their support for Palestinianism as the secular theology of what it means to be an Arab. And then the Pan-Arabists were defeated and headed to the dustbin of history mostly. And the Soviet Union stepped into the breach, really like taking anti-Zionism global behind the mask of Palestinianism. It's not a coincidence that the UN resolution, Zionism equals racism, created the entire infrastructure of the Palestinian rights at the UN, which even though the resolution was annulled, still persists. And then the Soviet Union was defeated and headed to the dustbin of history, and Iran entered the breach to become the proponent and supporter of Palestinianism. Now, the good news here is that if you look at the history of the previous supporters of Palestinianism, they were all defeated and they all ended in the dustbin of history. I have no doubt that the Mullah Ayatollah regime will meet the same fate, as well as the current supporters of Palestinianism in the West, call them the Western Marxists, militant progressives. They and the Mullah regime in Iran will meet the same fate as the Soviet Union, the Pan-Arabists, and the Nazis. They will be defeated. They will be in the dustbin of history. That's the good news. The bad news is that on the way to the dustbin of history, these bodies, these nations caused massive damage to the Jews and to the world at large. We don't have to expand on the Nazis, but let's talk about the Pan-Arabists. In the 2 decades when Pan-Arabism organized itself around anti-Zionism, from Morocco to Afghanistan, no Jews were left. A complete ethnic cleansing of the Jewish people. And we are talking about Jewish communities that predated the Arab and Muslim conquest in the 7th century, going back to the Babylonian exile in Iraq. And within 2 decades, in which anti-Zionism was the dominant ideology of the Arab world, no Jews were left. And by the way, they said they have nothing against Jews, it's only about Zionists. But again, anti-Zionism was the ideology, no Jews were left. The Soviet Union claimed to not recognize the Jews as a separate nation or a separate religion. Only they said they were part of 200 ethnicities. But we know how Jews were treated in the Soviet Union, and as soon as they could leave, they left. And we know that when the Ayatollah and Mullah regime in Iran came to power, a Jewish community of 150,000 was reduced to 8,000. We're seeing what's happening on American campuses right now. They claim they have nothing against Jews, like in the Pan-Arabism, Soviet Union. Jews are sometimes at the forefront of these revolutions, but they always turn hostile to Jewish life. And if it's not stopped, no Jews remain. So for me right now, I think this is a moment of peril. It is a moment of danger to the Jewish people. It's a moment of danger to the world at large. Again, I have no doubt that the Mullah Iranian regime will be defeated and find itself in the dustbin of history. The question is, how much damage will they cost to the Jewish people and the world at large until that moment.